The first time I stepped into the University of the Philippines, I felt this sweet sense of freedom. Finally, I was no longer under the control of my parents and even my grandparents. They could no longer impose their morals on me. I felt I was free to think on my own. I was free to think whatever I wanted. And so I explored the most heretical thoughts I could think of. Thoughts that I felt I was hindered from thinking about when I was younger. No immoral thought was taboo. No thought was too sinful or too impure. I really felt I had total freedom of thought. I didn't realize then that, and in which I know now, that certain thoughts were not good for me. There were thoughts that brought me down. There were thoughts that made me stray away from what I ought to be doing. I got lost. I thought complete freedom of thought was a good thing. I didn't realize I no longer had a moral compass. There was one thing that saved me from really going overboard. It was the thought of my mother. You know, I could hear her in my mind saying, "Wag yan, that's not good for you, Caloy." And that thought kept running in my head every time I seriously considered acting on an evil or impure thought. And that thought was enough to keep me from totally falling into the pit of destruction. It matters so much what we think about. What we think about have consequences in how we live our lives. Consider what Jesus said as recorded in the Gospel according to Mark. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. Thoughts are not neutral. There are thoughts that defile a person. We become spiritually unclean when we allow certain thoughts to hijack our brains and run wild in our minds. There are thoughts that are contrary to the will of God. You cannot think these thoughts and think that you will not be affected by them. You will. And if you allow these thoughts to fester in your mind, they bear bitter fruit. They may cause you to say and do something that you will regret all your life. Instead of having thoughts that will defile you, you should be thinking about things that will edify your heart and soul and will honor God. Think good thoughts, pure thoughts. Think of what is good for other people. Think generous thoughts, truthful thoughts, honorable thoughts, lovely thoughts, excellent thoughts. You will never go wrong thinking about such things. And if ever you fall into the temptation of thinking impure and evil thoughts, don't despair. Just confess it to God. Humble yourself before Him and ask for God's restoration. Ask the Holy Spirit to cleanse your thoughts, and you will be clean once again. As you begin to clean up your thought life, as you learn to submit your thought life to the rule of Christ, always be reminded, faith matters too.